Does it feel like to you, an American citizen, that you are losing freedoms? Is the U.S. setting aside freedoms we will not be able to restore? Hi, I'm Rex Rogers, and this is episode number 153 of Discerning What is Best, a podcast applying unchanging biblical principles in a rapidly changing world and a Christian worldview to current issues and everyday life. It seems to me that America, if not the West, including Europe, is losing its freedoms at an exponential rate. The free fall of freedom has been in the works for most of my lifetime, back into the 1960s, but moved to warp speed just 5 years ago with the advent of COVID-19. This virus, no matter what its source, created an opportunity for government officials to seize power with one inane mandate after another, all in the name of public safety. Now we know that masks accomplish very little, that vaccines were of limited utility, and keeping children home for months of schooling is a setback they will endure for their generation. Most of these government mandates were unilaterally handed down from on high by executive powers. Governors, state health officials, school boards, mayors, and more with limited or no actual constitutional authority to do so. Edicts were issued, and the American public acquiesced. But all this was only a spike in the curve of government overreach and the consequent loss of personal freedoms that has been our lot in the new millennia. During COVID, we thought we saw the threshold of the violation of basic rights, but the pandemic was only a springboard. During the summer of 2020, the horribly named Summer of Love that actually was a summer of Black Lives Matter riots and lawlessness in the wake of George Floyd's death while in custody, prosecutors stopped prosecuting. Police became the enemy and were in many communities defunded, followed since by significant drops in recruitment, coupled with significant increases in early retirements by law enforcement officers who have seen the writing on the wall. Public officials no longer back them up, no longer hold the criminal accountable, even as they seem to believe that victims have no rights at all. Non-prosecuting rogue prosecutors, an oxymoronic mouthful that really does describe reality, are destroying the American legal system, minority communities, and peace and tranquility in cities across the country. And with it, our freedoms. Gun control advocates argue for removing all guns from society, even as criminals continue to acquire guns and use them against law-abiding citizens. Journalistic attacks on so-called assault rifles have become a red herring masquerading as intelligent discussion about crime. Meanwhile, an assault rifle is not really a thing. It's just a look. Educrats in public education at all levels now think they know what's best for children and youth. Certainly parents are not to be trusted. No, schools promote a host of morally degraded woke practices. Drag queen story hours for children under 7 years of age, affirmation of all manner of gender ideology, including keeping any changes of pronouns, names, or other transitioning hidden from parents, sex education that is anything but age-appropriate taught in kindergarten, race division and distrust, supposedly to advance something called anti-racism, teachers promoting leftist political activism that is anti-Israel and often anti-Semitic, or blame America philosophies that destroy students' confidence, much less patriotism, for their own homeland. Social media has been co-opted by government. No crisis is too small for government to exploit and to expand its power. Print and online media have descended into depravity, no longer focusing upon the best and highest of cultural achievements, but on the most debauched, not simply reporting these developments, but propagandizing them, and not only propagandizing them, but championing them to teenagers and children. Pride Month is ubiquitously visible during the month of June, and yet Pride Month has no legal standing. What we've seen, though, is people losing their jobs for expressing different views, law enforcement being further defunded for non-compliance, people being canceled, meaning shunned or suppressed because they choose not to fly a pride flag or put a pride sticker on equipment or helmet. To ostensibly promote the freedom and acceptance of an immoral minority of the population, the majority is losing its freedom to disagree. Now, all this is only a part of the tectonic philosophic shifts underway in American culture, moving rapidly from an understanding of and respect for the traditional Judeo-Christian moral consensus that made education, law and order, economic progress, and civil tranquility possible in the first place. The same morality that birthed Western civilization, energized discovery and free enterprise, held Americans accountable for their wrongdoing in slavery, Jim Crow, and discrimination, liberated science and gave education purpose, reinforced the famed Protestant work ethic. These traditional, time-tested values and verities have not only been rejected, but they are also being suppressed. In the name of doing what's right in our own eyes, truth is rendered relative and stripped of its power. In the name of equality, something called equity has now displaced blind justice in favor of weighted identity politics wherein there is no justice, only chaos. In the name of diversity, we often get mediocrity. In the name of anti-racism, high schools and universities are going retrograde on integration to hold separate black and white commencements. In the name of freedom, freedoms are being taken away. Perhaps George Orwell was even more prescient than we thought. The moment that you think it can't get worse, it does. It's like there's no bottom to this madness. To test this conclusion, you only need to pay attention to what's happening in Canada. What was once a free country is now a socialist government-dominated, left-leaning society. Or you can look at what's happening in European cities, Berlin, Brussels, Paris, London, and more, every week. Vast numbers of illegal aliens marching in the streets, destroying property, chanting about Sharia law or anti-Semitism, demanding free goods and services on top of the ample amount they've already been awarded, tearing down the country's flag and raising Hamas flags, engaging in crimes against persons, including rapes, and screaming obscenities or harassing passers-by. This is in cities once known for their refinement and culture. Now, do we despair? No, for like the Apostle Paul in Athens on Areopagus, we note the culture around us. And we say, what therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. And God made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, and having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. God placed us in year 2024. He knows the challenges of our culture, the loss of freedoms, the zeitgeist of our age. It is our privilege to know and to share that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. It is our privilege and responsibility to communicate. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It is our privilege to proclaim, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Now, in summary, there are two ways to turn this around. One, ask God to send a spiritual awakening like he did in the 19th century. Two, vote out of office every radical, anti-God, anti-liberty politician and fire every bureaucrat who embraces the same. Well, we'll see you again soon. This broadcast is about discerning what is best. If you find this thought-provoking and helpful, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Download an episode for your friends. And for more Christian commentary, check my website, REXM as in Martin. That's RexMRogers.com. And remember, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm.